Hi, I'm Frank McDonough, Botanical Information Consultant for the Arboretum of Los Angeles County, and this is the Questionable Botanist, where I go over the questions I get for the day here at the Arboretum. We get a lot of questions here, thousands over the course of a year, from people about their gardens, weeds, diseases, pests, all kinds of things. And I go out of my way to answer them. If I don't know the answer, a lot of times I don't, I'll find out what the answer is. And it's been a little slow today. It's always slow when it's hot because nobody wants to go out in their garden or even talk about gardening when it's sweltering. But I did have a phone call yesterday that I'd like to share with you, and it was from a gentleman about his lemon. This gentleman lives in the Hollywood Hills. He has a Eureka lemon tree, which is always producing lemons. And his lemon tree, the branches are sagging and touching the ground because they are full of lemons. This has never happened before. Why is it happening? Well, it's probably happening because of the incredibly cool weather we've had up until now. Usually by now we've had 2 or 3 major heat waves. Right now we're finally getting into what we can call a heat wave after a long period of cool weather. This cool weather encourages growth that is soft. In other words, when plant tissue grows in cool weather, especially when it's cool and overcast, it tends to produce tissue that's full of water and isn't very hardened, and therefore you get saggy branches because the branches that have just been formed, the year-old branches, aren't as stiff as they would be if they had plenty of sun and heat to get their metabolic processes going, the sun to produce a lot of energy, and the metabolic processes to burn that energy and produce compounds that strengthen the branches. Now, what can you do about this? Not a heck of a lot. Eventually, those branches will stiffen up a little bit. Do you cut them? Well, yes and no. You can cut them a little bit if they're underneath the canopy of the tree to maybe get a little more favorable loft to them. But if you cut too many branches on a lemon tree, especially this time of year, you open the canopy up and it can get sunburn. Sunburn is a real problem for citrus trees. That's why it's recommended you never prune a citrus tree more than a quarter. What they're really saying is never open up the canopy so much that it can't recover by the time summer comes along and it has a possibility of burning. If you've ever seen a citrus tree that doesn't seem to do very well, it has bark that seems to be stripping off the upper branches. Some of the branches are black. That's sunburn. And sunburn never really gets better. It just keeps getting worse. It opens up the tree to diseases too, like canker disease and others. It's just not a good thing. So it's very important when and how you prune your citrus. When do you prune the citrus? When it's cool, either in the fall or the early spring, preferably in the fall. If you prune in the winter, you may risk some frost damage. Uh, Generally, you won't. Um, Best time probably late February, early March, or sometime in November. Again, with citrus, they're native where they grow. Their nature is to have photosynthetic bark. They grow in areas that are prone to some drought, and what happens is that they can lose all the leaves because of the drought. When they do that, they releaf. But the areas they lose that they have where they evolved in are usually areas with mild summers. Drought, but mild summers. Areas like Southeast Asia, where the summers are, well, they're still hot, but they're humid, so the tree doesn't dry out and burn. So it's really important, not to open up the canopy so much where it cannot recover. Now, I'm going to be giving a free tour tomorrow, 2 free tours, and I'm going to be talking about the history of the Botanic Garden. And did you know that modern day botanic gardens are the result of midwives, or midwifery, I should say? Actually, males took over midwives' positions, and during the Dark Ages, they had lots of witchcraft trials. And unfortunately, during those trials, they lost a lot of midwives because They practiced natural healing arts, and it was thought that those were akin to witchcraft. Well, who took over that job of healing with herbs? A class of merchants called apothecaries. Apothecaries not only provided healing herbs, they acted as midwives as well. And eventually, the apothecary became the general practitioner that we see today. How did apothecaries bring about the modern day botanic garden? Well, that I will talk about tomorrow in our tour, which talks about the history of the botanic garden, botanic gardens today, including this institution, the Los Angeles County Arboretum Botanic Garden, and what the botanic garden is going to look like in the future. Is it going to be a domed biosphere, preserving plants and other organisms that do not exist anywhere else on the planet? Or is it going to expand out into the planet? That's the question. It's going to be fun. It'll be tomorrow at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Check arboretum.org. That's arboretum.org. By the way, arboretum is a term that was coined in roughly the 17th, 18th century. Although it sounds Latin, there are no arboretums in Rome. There are atriums, but no arboretums. Although arboretum is Latin for place of trees. Going to be a fascinating tour, I tell you. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and on Saturday, I've got an Around the World in 127 acres tour. If you're not familiar with this tour, we go around the collection here at the Arboretum and take a look at it through a fun eye. You know, we look at some of the fun aspects, some of the interesting aspects, some of the gee whiz and golly aspects of our collection. And this Saturday, we're going to be looking at the South African collection. South African plants are ubiquitous in Southern California. The freeway daisy, it's a South African plant. Many of the acacias, you see, South African, also Australian. Gazanias, South African. But what else is South African? What else do you have planted in your landscape that's from the southern part of Africa? Well, we'll take a look on Saturday, and that tour is going to start at 1:30. See you there. Well, until next time, this is Frank McDonough, the Questionable Botanist here at the Los Angeles County Arboretum Botanic Garden, saying goodbye and good gardens.